Yo, this is Trav. That's biased. And as you already know,
What's
we're
up?
back again today. The Sports Bag Bros podcast is back on the set. Episode number 38. And as we would say, if you haven't watched the other 37 episodes, you were the ones who've missed out on the conversation we're trying to have in sports. We try to get to it right away so you know what's going to happen. We just went through a big weekend of sports, so this is our Monday. We're going to get down to it. As I said, I'm Trav. He's biased. Biased. Let him know what's up.
What's up? Good to be back. A lot of stuff happened over the weekend. We had the Hall of Fame game on Thursday, even though I don't care about it. Football's about to be rolled out in full swing. So let's get to the show.
Yep, you already know this is going to be the first full week of preseason football in the NFL. A lot of football heads are worried about that. They definitely want to see it. The Hall of Fame game, as you mentioned, was already played between the Jets and the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns were the ones victorious at the end of the day, but you know why you watch preseason games if you're going to watch them at all. We'll get around to that. So let's get into some of the bigger topics that happened over the weekend or even before the weekend. And one of the biggest things I think throughout the weekend, and it's strange because things that happen on Friday don't normally get spoken about on Monday. Because I think even in politics, they do the big thing on Friday. They hope that you forget, so it's not a big issue on a Monday. But here, we're going to talk about Terrence Williams, the former NBA player, and Brett Favre. And I know that those two, there shouldn't be much of a correlation before the sentencing. But now that the sentencing has happened with Terrence Williams getting 10 years in the slammer because of his insurance fraud with the NBA's healthcare and all of that stuff, well, people are looking at, what about Brett Favre? He was involved with something too, with insurance and all of these other things. How do we bring clarity to this argument?
Well, at the moment, there are no charges brought up against Brett Favre, to my knowledge. I don't know if they even have a case. His name may have been involved, but was he actually doing anything illegal, or was it done to him? If there's no charges against him, then there's no correlation. If he didn't do anything illegal, there's zero correlation. I think there's outrage because people are saying Williams got this like maximum sentence and Brett Favre isn't getting anything. Well, we don't know that for sure yet. So we have to see how it plays out. But like I said, if there's no charges, he didn't do anything illegal, and things were done without his knowledge, well, then how can we hold him accountable?
Exactly, but you already know how it works out. You know the tribal nature of social media in particular. And because there's social media and a lot of people have a chance to comment, you can get a nice sample size just as much as any statistician if they had to talk about politics. And in this case, I get to see a lot, and you probably get to see a lot of the same. When people talk about something like this, it's more about race than it should be about the issue. You see how it ends up? It's a tribal mindset. We see it in boxing, we see it in other sports, but this in particular, and in my opinion, and I think there may be something to it, they look at white guy didn't go to jail, black guy did go to jail. They're not even really caring about what happened to put them in either position in which they're in.
Right. And something that I haven't seen notice, I just found out myself. There are other people involved with Williams who are yet to be sentenced. So he wasn't acting alone. Other former players were involved.
Yeah,
So go ahead.
no, if you were to break it down and look at the case and what had happened, I mean, there's a lot of information out there on it. You don't have to be a lawyer and you don't have to be anything in the law field to just read and kind of say for yourself, just have a little bit of common sense and no real bias about it. I mean, he went into it with 18 other people he recruited to help defraud the NBA. And that's one of the sticking points right there. Not only did he have other 18 others, included in those 18 others were players, of course, that we know of. And then you're talking about medical professionals who even went as far as having invoices written up for this fraud. That means that this was organized. You know what I mean? I mean, if you want to look at organized crime, well, a crime was committed.
That's
There
a
was
conspiracy.
there was people put together, in an organization to make it happen, and this is how it came about. That's where the 10 years is coming from. I mean, if you want to get even more in depth, he was getting a $300,000 kickback from all of these things that was happening. He was enriching himself through this fraud. So when you add all of these elements, having 18 other people, players and medical professionals included, and there was wire fraud involved, I believe, from what I've seen. Also, there was a threat to a witness from a text message.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
All of that. Brett Favre hasn't done any of that. Even if Brett Favre is lying, is it 10 years worth? And I think in this case here with Terrence Williams, it could be even more because some of these things they've done with the wire fraud and the threats and continuously putting this group together and having this happen the way it has happened, you might be up for a RICO case, man. This is what they look at for mobsters. Some of these things they've done are fall under some of the issues that would put them under RICO law and the RICO statute. And because of that, hey, they could get 100 years like the mobsters, but 10 years, 1/10 of that, be happy with it.
Yeah, and he's supposed to pay back like over $2 million and another 600,000. And from what I've seen, he doesn't have it. I don't know how that gets reconciled, but yeah, he won't be making any income for 10 years.
And the judge who sentenced him spoke specifically talking about how he fretted his money away from an NBA career. He pretty much has nothing left, and that's why he did this. I mean, you blew your money. Whatever it is you had done when you were playing in the NBA, whether it was the NBA minimum or whether you were getting solid money, you were getting more than almost everybody else in the country per average, and you just blew it. So the next best thing for you to do wasn't going out and getting a job. It wasn't going out and using whatever degree you may or may not have had, but you built a lot of connections over these years being an NBA player. You would think that it would be something outside of fraud. You've chosen this fraudulent field, and you've chosen to bring all of these people into this fraudulent field, and here we are today. So, that's where 10 years come from, and it could have been more. Leave Brett Favre alone until Brett Favre's situation comes back up, because when it comes up, you're going to hear about how Brett Favre had a company that was funded by welfare, the state's welfare, because it was money from the federal government. He was supposed to speak and get paid for that, but he didn't show up. Worst case scenario, he was paid for work he didn't do. And is that 10 years worth of penalties he should have because of it? Because you're upset about one guy going and one guy not going? These aren't the same case.
Exactly right. 100%. You know who's been quiet, or at least I haven't seen him comment? Kwame Brown. Kwame Brown has a lot to say about a lot of people. Why has he been quiet about this one?
You know what? That's true. Kwame Brown, hey, he's been this red pill, basketball, conservative kind of guy. I mean, even moderate in a lot of cases, that's spoken about everything under the sun. Nothing was beneath him. And now it seems like he's mysteriously quiet. I wonder, but ultimately I think he'll come up with something. But he doesn't typically try to come to the aid of basketball players or even athletes unless there's legitimately a reason why. You know, from what I've understood about him, and I actually had a conversation with him before about a year and a half ago, but it seems like he's more on the page of trying to just have his own thoughts and trying to get to the bottom of whatever he believes is there, whatever he believes the bottom conclusion should be. You know, I never really saw him siding with a player that he probably shouldn't have been siding with. He's usually in the right when he's siding with a particular player. But right now, his silence right now when he speaks up about things is pretty.
I'm surprised he doesn't have an opinion coming out. You know how he clowned John Moran and you know how he clowned other people. Why doesn't he clown Williams?
Well, right now, Williams is not a big name. He's only a big name back on the landscape because of what's going on right now.
So he won't get enough clicks for it.
You know what? He might not get enough clicks for it, but I think that the reason what we're speaking about right now is the reason why he may get clicks, because based on what's happened this weekend, just going by social media, there's been a lot of people talking about this under what we've talked about. We've talked about that it's not necessarily the case. It's just the black guy went and the white guy did it. I still believe that's what it is. And we have these tribal mindsets, especially in today's age, who push these narratives of race and not substance. And we end up nowhere. So that's why I wanted to bring some clarity right now, because you specifically look at what Brett Favre had done, not saying it's right, but you look at what Terrence Williams has done, which we know isn't right. He's been indicted and now charged. And we see now, at least with some clarity, why he got 10 years. And whenever Brett Favre's issue comes up, will he get 10 years? Will he get 2 years? Will he get any time? I don't think what he did was as egregious, even though it was egregious. There's levels to this, as we already know. We talk about it in boxing and other sports. There are levels. Well, there's this level where Brett Favre's on, and then there's this level where Terrence Williams is on.
Well, let me just be clear. If Brett Favre was involved in defrauding the welfare system or the funds, whatever, throw the book at him. I mean, is he going to get 10 years? Is it worth 10 years? No, but he should get whatever is available to the judge to give him.
Oh, absolutely. As long as they're following the letter of the law in their state or however way they can do it, because is it a state issue or is it a federal issue? Because welfare is federal money, but the federal money was given to the state to do what they please with it. And they decided to put it in nonprofit organizations, from what I understand. And Brett Favre was part of one of the organizations and one of the nonprofits. And he was looking to raise money, which had helped build a volleyball facility for Southern Mississippi, his alma mater. And he just didn't show up. That's not good, getting paid for something you definitely didn't do. He's at least admitting to that. Now he's talking about, at least on paper, he admitted to, I didn't show up.
Yeah, for his sake, I hope he doesn't do what Harbaugh did and lie and make it worse, because a lot, like we mentioned, the lie usually gets you in worse trouble than the actual infraction or violation.
And as far as he goes, he's saying, well, I didn't know it was welfare money. Now, I don't know if you're going to be right or wrong about that. People who don't like him or don't like what's going on between he and Williams are going to look at him cockeyed. You know how it works. You know what I mean? Tribal types don't need logic. They just need feelings, and they run with their feelings. So, on the surface, you could say he's lying. He probably is. How do you not know where the money's coming from?
Probably.
There was a text message in which he asked, is anybody going to know where I got the money from or how much I got paid? That's a text that he had sent. Now, his lawyer defends that by saying he only asked that because he doesn't want the public to know what he's getting paid. He doesn't want the public to know how he's making his money. And that's rightful. As an NFL player, we know everyone's salary. He's not an NFL player anymore. So why should we know what he's getting to continue to live? But as this comes out and you have your exploration during the process, we're going to find out these things if it gets that far.
Yeah, it's just my first thought is bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. And worst case scenario, if it's BS, well, is that 10 years of BS? Is it 10 years of BS?
Lawyer's going to say a lot of things in favor of his client. So, I can't be mad at him.
That's every lawyer. He'd get fired if he did.
Right. I just think it's bullshit.
Yeah, it probably is. But Terrence Williams got what he deserved, and it could have been a lot worse. Possibly something having to do with the RICO statute, which was brought up in 1970. It hasn't been. It's been used basically to go after mafia guys, organized crime. But hey, under what we've talked about, hey, it was organized. It was crime. There was money involved. There was wire fraud. A lot of things that fall under, the title of a RICO statute. So hey, be glad with your 10 years. And those tribesmen out there, stop the nonsense.
He'll probably get off. He'll probably get off on parole after about a good 4 or 5.
He doesn't want to go at all.
Well, yeah, I get that. I'm just saying.
Well, hey, you committed the crime, do the time. Come on, man. No big deal. No big deal, because it wasn't a big deal when you were stealing money and defrauding the NBA. Come on. The NBA gave you an opportunity.
That's probably his biggest gripe. Like, I defrauded the NBA. Who cares? They're billionaires.
I've never been one of those types that think because someone's making so much money, it allows for anyone to just take from them.
I'm just saying. I'm trying to
know how people
his mindset.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand how that mentality is. That's gutter mentality.
People saying, do it again. I wish more people would do it.
Yeah, I mean, well, and this is part of one of the threads I was talking about when they were saying, there were people in there saying, well, the government does it all the time. Insurance and banks do it all the time. Yeah, the whataboutism. That's what it is. What about them? What about them? No, the judge doesn't look at whataboutism. They look at the law, you right now, and people who are involved in the case, and this is how they came to their conclusion. So what about that? So we can move on for that. But
moving on, right?
I thought it was something that we could just throw out there, and if anybody wants to comment on it, you can come and do just that. Because, hey, baseball is still going on. Our boy Luis Ariz ain't really getting it done this year, at least going for 400. Still has a very good batting average right now. But Tim Anderson, the big news in baseball, Jose Ramirez. It wasn't pay-per-view. We got a chance to watch it over and over, man. A fight occurred. Tim Anderson went down. Down goes Anderson. Down goes Anderson. What are your
that
thoughts
one
on
hurt,
that?
man. That
As
one
a White
hurt.
Sox fan, what are your thoughts?
That one hurt. You can see my hat. You see the Sox in the back behind me.
Yeah.
I've said it before. I'm a White Sox fan. That one hurt. Um, I'll have more to say later on Bias's hit list, but that one hurt. When I saw it, I was like, "Oh no!" And then he's just been getting clowned. But the most disappointing thing is a lot of White Sox fans on Facebook, different pages that I follow,
Mm-hmm.
um, they're ridiculous. You would think they're Cubs fans or Indians fans, Guardians fans. My bad. Or Jose Ramirez TICK riders. Like they're just so happy that it happened. And the statements are even ridiculous, saying he got slept or he got knocked out. When you put your hands down to break your fall and then you get up, you are not knocked out. That's not a knockout, dumbasses.
Well, you know how people are. I mean, now his own teammates, now his own fans, I don't know. But as a Yankee fan, of course, you know, he said some things about the Yankees in the past. So I was more than
Oh,
happy
you
to
know
see.
Donaldson's a jerk.
Of course. But hey, he was on our team at the time. But
He's
he
your
was,
jerk. He was your
he's
jerk.
our
So.
jerk. Exactly. Let's just keep this in house and
And that's my thing about White Sox fans. He's our shortstop.
yeah,
Whether you're disappointed that he's having a poor season, the off season, whatever, that doesn't mean you should get enjoyment out of him getting decked. Come on,
exactly.
man.
You know,
That's
it's
our shortstop.
hey, it's like Domingo Herman last week. You know, as much as I hadn't liked him outside of the perfect game this past season, throughout the past several years he's been with the Yankees, he's always been in my S list, if you want to call it that. But when he had his alcohol problems, it's back to just business as being, yo, you know what? Maybe this is the impetus for the reasons he's been acting the way he has been acting off of the field with his ex-girlfriend and subsequent people. You know what I mean? You want the best for someone going through like that, you know, if he's part of your team or even somewhere else, but even, you know, more when they're with your team. So I understand how, yeah, White Sox fans should have stuck with their guy regardless. You know what I mean? Keep it in-house or inside the stadium of fans. Just keep the fandom in the stadium and the players. Keep that all in mind.
I mean, I even read one comment saying that TA deserved it because he started it. How did he start it? The man
I
still.
can't really tell you how it started. I mean,
I'll talk about that on my hit list later, but it was definitely started by Ramirez.
Yeah, make sure you all stay tuned to Bias's hit list. You know, this guy comes up with some of the best rants at the end of the show. So I was like, why not just get your rant together? Let's package that thing. And then all of you who want to get to the end of the show can rush to the line and check out what his rant is for the day, maybe even more than a day. But I'm sure we already know what that rant is going to be when we get to it a little bit later. But yes, that was big news. And we could actually move on from that because they're going to get to hear enough from you after all when this is said and done by the end of the show. And we're going to make a short out of it, so you all going to hear it at some point.
I got a couple people on my hit list today.
So you know what? Exactly. So he's going to do one of those St. Valentine's Day massacre deals. He's going to shoot everybody. Everybody's getting caught on this one. So yeah, baseball still going, still hitting. We saw the story. That seems to be the big story in baseball right now. And so, hey, move on. And what do we move on to from there? Well, we go from one KO to possibly another KO. Claressa Shields, the women's champ, the GOAT, the greatest woman of all time, in her opinion. She is calling out men. This feminist movement is becoming more and more dangerous the more it goes on. Claressa Shields is calling out Keith one-time Thurman at 154 pounds. And not only that, she's even calling out Jake Paul. I don't see a win coming from either one if she gets in the ring with them and they're serious about getting her out of there.
Yeah, she needs to stay away from Jake Paul just because he's a much bigger person. You know, he's a big guy. Thurman, will she make him weigh 147 if they fought? You know, not so big guy, but better boxer overall. You know, better technique, better skills, better IQ than Paul, but won't hit as hard. But you know, he may not have to hit as hard.
Exactly, man. See, I don't know what I mentioned feminism, and I kind of did it a little bit tongue in cheek, but that seems like that's exactly what's going on right now. This equal opportunity, equal everything. Yeah, there are things that are equal, things that probably aren't equal, but they aren't the things that you're pointing to when you talk about men and women in a professional setting. Even if you don't take Jake Paul serious, the guy's been training now for boxing for a few years now, and he knows how to throw a punch, and all it takes is one punch. I mean, look at Lucia Riker when she had fought years ago, a couple of years ago. At one point, and I still believe, pound for pound, she's the greatest female fighter to ever have lived. She fought in Thailand against a Thai fighter, and she was knocked out of 2 rounds. 2 rounds. That's it. A nondescript Thai fighter punched her. He didn't kick her. He punched her and knocked her out. And we're talking about someone who knows how to take a punch, someone who knows what to do when they're punched, but she didn't have any say in the matter when she was punched by a man. There's a reason why they have women and men in different sports, women and men when it comes down to physical ability and boxing in particular, or even combat sports. It's a freak show when they do something different, and this would be nothing less than a freak show as well. A bunch of wife beaters and whatnot will come up and probably be the ones buying the pay-per-views. But then the reason why you have a WNBA and an NBA, the reason why there's women's tennis and men's tennis, those reasons are glaring. So why is this even an issue? Is she doing this for attention? Something's telling me that she's not. She's really believing what she's saying.
Maybe it's a lack of competition. Who is out there for her to fight? Someone that's going to challenge her. So maybe she's looking for a challenge. That's all I can think of. But I hope it doesn't happen. But if it does, they would have to let her wear headgear. Thurman or whoever would have to wear pillows for gloves. I mean, come on.
Well, Keith Thurman said we can do this for charity. Now, she wants something a little bit more serious than that. In fact, she wants something a lot more serious because she wants to be taken even more serious. She's acting like she's on the same level of these people, and whoever's telling her something in the dark or in the sparring session that she can compete with these guys in a real boxing setting, I mean, they're wrong for doing it. They're walking her to the gallows because that's exactly what would happen with either guy. She's thinking that she can outbox Keith Thurman. It's not going to happen. Are you going to have 3-minute rounds like men have, or 2-minute rounds like she's used to? She's advocated for 3-minute rounds in the past. So I wouldn't be surprised if this thing did come to fruition. Would it be 3-minute rounds? On the other hand, Keith Thurman has nothing to win. He has everything to lose. Everything to lose. I mean, you can't get outboxed because even if you don't get knocked out, you're embarrassed. And then if you take it easy on her, people are going to know it. That's embarrassing. And then they say, why did you sign the contract to begin with? It's all embarrassing. It's a circus.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why she's picking Keith Thurman, a former world champion.
Yeah, right.
Fight somebody who's 2-5 or something, or 5-15. I don't know. Start slowly. Most times when boxers move up in weight, a lot of times they don't go right after the champ. Unlike your boy anyway. They test the waters. So if she really wants to fight a man, test the waters before you step up. But I don't want to see it. I don't know why I'm giving her advice. Scratch that.
Man, I don't want a woman fighting a man at all in boxing. But I want her to fight a man. I want her to fight a man. I want to see it happen. I want to see how that goes down. She's not exactly on my favorite persons list. But hey, I know, seriously, I don't want to see that fight. But if it does happen, it'll be too intriguing not to pay for it, because it would be a pay-per-view event, and I will be contributing to Ringling Brothers in that case. But, hopefully it doesn't happen. She calls out Keith Thurman. You know what? If she got a 5-0 fighter, I still think we'll get the same result. A 5-0 fighter. This is the difference between men and women, man. There might be a woman out there. Can you beat her? Can you, the usual nonsense you hear. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm years removed from being in any type of a ring and whatnot, even just practicing. But nevertheless, we're talking about her being a professional on the highest levels, calling out other fighters who aren't even champs right now on a level, not even a higher level. In Keith Thurman's case, a higher level every 2 years that he fights. But in Jake Paul's case, on any level. And I still think she loses to him. She's not outboxing him either, because in an 8 or 10 round fight, she's going to get hit eventually. And she will get buzzed eventually and early when he's still strong. And what's going to happen then? I mean, that's
completely the Jake Paul fights, there's a chance he might take that fight. I mean, his fights are really a circus. Why not?
Exactly.
Go all out.
Most of his fights are circus, surrounded by circus elements. And, he's picking MMA guys who are too old, or guys he just thought he could beat. He lost with Huey Fury. But this time, what's, he might just tell his girl to fight her. Like, isn't he dating Amanda Serrano? She can't fight her. She's too little and she'll lose.
Oh,
But
she'll get jacked up.
exactly. So I mean, if this is the smoke she wants, kind of give them what they want so they'd go away. But the guy would have a scarlet letter on him after knocking her out because I don't think it could any other way. And someone keep their dignity. She can get knocked out and still keep her dignity. These guys can't keep their dignity if they can't knock her out.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just something I wanted to bring up there because well, boxing is the ultimate circus at times. It can be the most beautiful thing as we had seen 2 weeks ago when Bud and Spence had gotten into the ring, or it could be the circus that this is trying to be. Or there's a third option. It could be Dillian White still looking for a title shot, and Anthony Joshua without a belt. Those two no longer getting together because Dillian White failed his test, or PEDs, drugs, or whatever it might have been. I mean, their fight is canceled. And me, I'm glad. I didn't want to see it anyway.
Yeah, I was about to say good. I wasn't paying attention to that fight, but you mentioned Bud and something that happened after the Bud fight. Caleb Plant smacked one of the Charlo brothers. I don't even remember which one it was now, but he put up a video saying he wasn't breaking up a fight between the brothers. He don't care. He says those are two grown men. If they want to fight, let them fight. He's not breaking it up. And he said his wife didn't get smacked. Nobody touched his wife.
Nah.
But he said Charlo had grabbed his beard and tugged down his beard, and he told him stop.
Oh, see,
don't
do
do that.
Man.
Don't touch my face. And he says that Charlo. Now this is his story. Charlo said, "Oh, you just a white boy. You a bitch. You ain't gonna do nothing." He started all that white boy bitch shit.
Yep.
And Caleb was saying, my wife is here. Our boxing peers are here. He said, well, I can't go home and look myself in the mirror. He said, I told him stop. And he did it again. He pulled on my beard harder the second time. So I did what I had to do. He said, I told him that I didn't want him doing that. I told him to stop. He did it. So, hey, if that's how it went down, good for Caleb Plant. He should have closed his fist and punched him, though.
But how does that happen one time, though? That's a grown man. That's the ultimate disrespect. And that's something that's been happening.
You got to give him credit. He was showing a lot of restraint. You got to give him credit. He was showing restraint.
Absolutely, he showed a lot of restraint. But this is a boxer. He fights for a living. And it's a man with a family. And you pulling on his beard like he's a little 5-year-old with a beard. I mean, come on. You don't treat a man like that at all, in any respect. And for him to respond the way that he did, of course, you're going to do that. Any man worth a damn to do. And that just shows you the lack of respect either Charlo may have for him. And it also is a microcosm of how it's looked at in the fight game by fans. And we also seen it often, fighters alike. They don't respect a lot of white fighters. A lot of non-Black or Latino fighters don't get the respect they deserve, regardless of how good they are. And the fans say it on pages. You can read it all the time, even when they're trying to hide it. You know exactly what they're talking about. Once again, it's that tribal mindset I've been talking about. We've heard Bernard Hopkins say stupid crap in the past and get away with it. You haven't heard white fighters say nonsense like that and have to worry about getting away with it. They have to eat it. Alan Minter said that kind of thing before he fought Marvin Hagler, and he got his ass nailed to the cross for it. And that was like over 40 years ago. So now we talking, even to this day, it's always some other fighter who's non-white talking about a white fighter and expecting them to eat it, disrespecting him, expecting him to eat it. What was it? Was it Peterson that fought Darryl that fought that just fought Plant a couple of fights before? Talking pretty much the same nonsense.
Oh, when he did the grave digger.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. So you get, they get a chance to say all of this crap and they're beyond reproach. And then when you respond, you looked at cockeyed because you responded to it. But yeah, I'll say it. White fighters have been eating this crap for years. And there's no reason for it. There should be no place for it because there's a ring for you to fight about it and decide your superiority or your supremacy if that's what you want to do. You call yourself a fighter. I just hate that it happens like that. But yeah, grown man getting his beard tugged on. Man,
yeah, he couldn't call him a punk. He could have still called him a bitch. He just didn't have to call him a white boy.
Exactly. That's exactly. But that's the double standard and double-edged sword that we have in today's society, where this one side can now say what the hell they wanted. People who haven't suffered any damn thing for the most part. But then the other guy who had nothing to do with all the crap that may have happened in the past has to eat it, has to be humble, has to just sit there knowing he has a wife and kid that might see this same crap. That's BS. And Charlo got what he deserved. And now they need to get some contracts out and get a real fight in the ring and see how this thing can be determined.
Right.
And I'll tell you, I think Charlie would win if those two did fight at 168, but I'll be rooting for Caleb Plant.
Yeah, I don't know if one brother hasn't fought in 2 years, the other one's moving up 2 weight classes. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yep. But back to the Dillian White and Anthony Joshua fight, canceled. Really, no one wanted to see it.
Good.
What we would have seen probably is another uppercut knockout, as what happens with Dillian White. Anytime he fights anybody, the KO's always an uppercut, whether left or right is the one you choose. And depending on which round you want to use it is when it will go down. So, no, I'm not too sad about this fight not happening. In fact, I really don't want to see any heavyweight fight unless it's Usyk and Fury. I mean, who else is out there? Or Ruiz and Wilder. Ruiz and Wilder, I could dig that. But it doesn't look like, they're doing a lot of talking, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon either.
Yeah, like I'm on record as saying that's a bad matchup for Ruiz. But
I think
why not Wilder and Usyk?
Wilder and Usyk?
Yeah.
Man, you know what?
Since Fury's going to fight Ngannou, he's not available.
I say skills pay the bills most of the time. But when you have kind of like game-changing power, that can kind of change everything. And Anthony Joshua obviously is more skilled than Deontay Wilder. He was able to tag Usyk, and he was still there. He used his guile. He used his experience from amateur days and pro days. He's just a different level fighter. But someone like Deontay Wilder, who isn't very skilled, who could have been very skilled if he concentrated on skill more than power with all his measurables, long arms, athleticism, all of that kind of stuff, he'd be better off. But we haven't seen that from him. So there's no reason to think that that's going to be something new. If Mark Breland couldn't bring it out of him, why would anybody else be able to bring it out of him when the heat is on inside of a ring? You go back to what you are, in his case, a puncher. And with Ruiz fighting, I think Ruiz, because the quick hands and the fundamentals that Ruiz has. Don't look at his body. Look at his hands. And look at the skills that this guy has. He's highly skilled. But until he gets hit, and he does get hit, and he does go down, and he gets back up. But Wilder, a lot of times, don't allow you to get back up unless you're somebody like Fury.
Yeah, so, it would be like Hearns and Duran.
Yeah, yeah, 2-round fight. Tap, 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 bam, right hand. That's it. The only difference is there won't be a jab to set it up. It'll just be a right hand just landing. And Ruiz may just go down, man. Chris Arreola, I mean, he's as shot as JFK. And this guy was able to put him down. So anyway, yeah, that puts a lid on our boxing talk for now, but there's going to be much more boxing talk, I'm sure, coming up. And later weeks, obviously, Charlo and Canelo getting together next month. And I'm sure there'll be other fights that's going to come up before the year ends. Let's hope one of those fights isn't Bud and Spence for a second time in December. Let that fight happen sometime next year if it's going to happen at all. So college football is here. We talked about the NFL being around right now and teams going into the first full week of play. College football is just about around the corner as well. We're talking about camps that are now opened up. 0-week play is about to begin. But before any of that, all of the change in college football is going on right now. There's no longer a Pac-12. It's pretty much the Pac-4. We're talking Washington and Oregon has decided to go to the Big Ten. And the irony is, I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, we just talked about it last week. Coach Lanning from Oregon was talking about Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes leaving and going back to the Big 12. They're moving themselves. They're going to the Big Ten. So, I mean, man, coaches don't have a say in the matter here.
Yeah, as we've talked about it pretty much extensively, the landscape of college football is changing. Who knows what other teams, the Pac or the Big 10, Big 18, Big 20, which other schools they're going to consume. But who says they're done? No. Like I said, they might be creating the college football league, and then the SEC is going to have to counter.
These are, you know what? The SEC is making all the money, even more than the Big Ten, and even if the Big Ten has more teams, I think the SEC, just because of the religion of football in the South, and you're bringing in Oklahoma and Texas next season, that's bringing in even more money. Texas has the most money out of all of those regular schools. We're not talking about the Ivy League and Harvard, the big endowment, all that. Oh my God. Anyway, when we're talking about just a lot of money there. But the Pac-12 may not exist anymore because now Arizona State, and Utah, they're now going to the Big 12 as well. I mean, this is a freaking mess the way everything is going now. I mean, they're heading to the Big 12. The Big 12 won't be the Big 12 anymore because they've already invited teams that they thought they were going to solidify having 12 teams with, but now they're bringing more teams. And then we also talked about last week how Cal and Stanford also may be going to the Big 10. There won't be any Big 12. And I think that Rick Pitino made a comment just the other day saying that why don't they separate college football from all the other sports? Because of travel, as we talked about last week. And the reason for that, obviously, football teams play fewer games than the basketball teams. It's the basketball teams that will have to go from coast to coast so often throughout the entire week to get to where they're playing.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. If Florida State goes to the Big Ten, they'll do a home and home with Washington.
Yeah, exactly. And you go from
opposite corners of the country.
The only way I could see them trying to justify that is if they're playing in like back-to-back games, so Florida State could stay in Washington, it wouldn't even be staying in Washington. Just throw that whole theory out the way. I thought they could just play 2 games in Washington.
It'd be like a road trip in baseball.
Yeah,
for a week. Washington, Oregon, USC, UCLA, then back home.
Yeah, that would be the best way to do it, but it's still a big strain class-wise because these are quote-unquote student athletes. So going to classes and still having your regular practice, having your own bed to sleep in, having your own facilities to practice in, so you are sharper than you would have been on the road. All of those things matter. And then
they can do Zoom meetings and stuff now. So join class through Zoom.
Yeah, right. You join class through Zoom. They're not even showing up when they're supposed to be on campus. I'm not gonna say that. Come on, there are some quintessential student athletes.
Some students are not showing up.
Yeah, some students aren't showing up. I mean, even Harvard probably has that problem. We don't know. But this is what's going on with college football now. Will they become a super conference to where pretty much everybody's going to the Big Ten and pretty much everybody's going to the SEC? Well, the ACC may decide to merge with the Pac-12 or whatever's left of the Pac-12 from some.
Like, what if they get so big and they just decide, you know what? We'll make our own bowl. We'll have our own championship.
That's what I'm hoping. I hope they secede from the NCAA. So they'll get everything they deserve for all of these decades that they've screwed these players and had their way, and everything's been their way or the highway. And that's the reason why I think that's probably why they didn't let players get paid all of this time until NIL came along, because in my opinion, that's the most equitable way to get it done instead of paying kickers and quarterbacks and all that and trying to figure out a pay scale. And I think that all of these teams, look at Brian Bosworth when he was talking about the NCAA back in the day. He didn't like them either. And these teams can make their own super conference. And whenever that NCAA contract, if there is one, expires, they could make that move. They have the money to do it. Maybe the NCAA can govern New Mexico State and New Mexico, UNLV, those types of schools. But those major teams need to be on their own.
Yeah, I mean, who's to stop them if they get so big? But you know what, guys? We got our own league. We're gonna have our own championship.
Yep. The networks are coming to the teams because that's who you negotiate with. You go to the SEC commissioner, you go to the Big Ten commissioner, you go to these commissioners, those presidents get together, they see how the pie is going to be cut. They make their decisions on the biggest pieces of the pie. And that's all you really need. So now,
I mean, keep in mind the Big Ten prevented a bunch of championship games in the past, or Big Ten and Pac-12, by locking their top teams into the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
When they weren't available to play the number 2 or the number 1 team, but one of their teams was number 2 or vice versa. So they did it for so many years, so why not do it again? But they'll have more control of it.
Well, yeah, I think if they have their own conference, their own super conference, they'll have exactly what they want. These players will be exactly what they are, which is a minor league for the pros, because a lot of times that's what it is. These are the minor leagues for the professional players. Every now and then you get a great player that comes out of a smaller school, like a Brian Urlacher coming out of New Mexico. You get that. Every now and then you get a star player like a Michael Strahan coming out of a Texas Southern, but that's the SWAC in Division I AA football. But either way, those large programs or those large conferences are getting bigger and bigger, and it's setting up to where that may be a possibility. I don't know the what's going on, how deep it goes, and how much they have to take care of paperwork and otherwise and legalities to get this done to just become their own conference or just a major conference, and just have your sides, your divisions. I don't know what it's going to take to get there, but I see that they're making it more and more possible, especially as these more and more lucrative contracts coming from these networks become a thing.
Yeah. Not I don't have much more to say. It's just crazy times we're living in for college football.
Yeah, and hey, the season's right around the corner. I'm more than happy to get a chance to see this season. I'm gonna be a little bit more interested in this season here because some of these teams are going to become better than they probably should have just because of the transfer portal. You know, Notre Dame losing a quarterback. Now they're gaining a quarterback in Sam Hartman, which is one of the top quarterbacks in all of college football last year, playing at Wake Forest. How about Notre Dame now having a legitimate quarterback as long as he can decipher their playbook and understand what's going on? They shouldn't have any problems offensively. Defensively, maybe a different story, but they usually come with a pretty solid defense as long as they stay off the field. I mean, they don't stay on the field too long.
Yeah, I mean they'll probably run the table until they get to the playoff and then get bounced.
Get the shellacking they deserve.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Clemson's another one of those great teams that no one's really talking about because everybody's too busy fawning over Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan. Now LSU's kind of creeping in there, which I don't believe they deserve to be, but that's where they are right now. And we'll get more opportunities to talk about that as the season begins and as it goes on. Because as I've already mentioned, the NFL season, preseason has already begun. The Jets played the Cleveland Browns at the Hall of Fame game. You know, we had all new Hall of Fame inductees during the ceremony in Canton. I think it was Sunday or Saturday, whenever they had it. Hey, don't kill the messenger. I was the one watching sometimes. But, I mean, look at some of the teams that are interesting, at least. And Green Bay, obviously, Aaron Rodgers goes over to the New York Jets, and Jordan Love has moved up to the starting position now in Green Bay. And going by observers, they're not too happy about what's going on during the preseason. This is not even a preseason game. We're talking training camp, and he's getting bad reviews in training camp. Is there something to that? Or would you look too far into that, or the same way you would look into a regular preseason game?
I haven't seen it, but I would say pump the brakes. You know, let them play a few series in a preseason game. You know, let them play the first game of the year, and you know, this is the first time he's been the starter. You know, he's QB1 for the first time as a Green Bay Packer. You're gonna go off of a few practices and say, "Oh, he doesn't have it." That may be true, but you cannot come to that conclusion without him playing an actual football game.
Exactly. With this team that he has right now, knowing he's the guy, knowing you have to have a certain mentality for that. They keep bringing up the stats that he's had over the past 2 seasons behind Aaron Rodgers: 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Bro, come on. He had 1 touchdown, 2 picks in his first year. Last year, he threw 1 touchdown. I mean, for what it's worth, I mean, really, there's really nothing there. I mean, he's still got some yards in between time. And so, and his completion percentage, if you would just want to take something to analyze, I mean, it wasn't that bad. I mean, he was over 60%, you know, in last year. And if you just look at the players who've played with Green Bay in the past, you look at Brett Favre when he first came in, and, you know, he went to the Atlanta Falcons first. He was traded to Green Bay. For people who don't remember or even know, I remember that draft in 1991 when the Jets obviously were looking at him, and right before the Jets were the Atlanta Falcons. The Jets wanted Brett Favre. He goes in front of them, and they take Brown and Nagel. Never mind. But it took Brett Favre some time before he got himself his feet wet and became Brett Favre that we know of today. Aaron Rodgers had more of a benefit than anyone else. You know, and Brett Favre, by the way, didn't start doing things until his 4th year. And Aaron Rodgers didn't play into his 4th year in terms of starting a game. And so Aaron Rodgers, as we see him as a Hall of Famer now, we looked at Brett Favre back there with Green Bay. Before him, there was Don Majkowski, the Magic Man, if you remember that guy. And he was considered something good when the Green Bay Packers weren't winning.
Game.
Huh?
I remember Majkowski, the replay game. Bears got cheated. But you mentioned Favre. It took him a while, you know, to get his career going. You know, he struggled early, but a lot of quarterbacks struggle first couple seasons in their
Exactly.
careers. The funny thing about Favre is I remember, he threw a lot of interceptions. They said
Mhm.
like he would scramble and he trying to force the ball in when he shouldn't, and he just made poor decisions. And I don't know, I can't remember if it was a preseason game or the first game of the year. He kind of scrambled and then he threw the ball away. And the crowd applauded like they went crazy. Yeah, like he knows what he's doing now. He knows to throw it away, not to try and force it in there. I mean, that's so hilarious for the crowd to cheer for a ball getting thrown out of bounds. But it shows some maturity on his part.
Yeah,
But what
because
what is the likelihood that the Packers get 3 Hall of Fame quarterbacks in a row?
wow. You know what? I don't think that Jordan Love is going to turn out to be a Hall of Famer. But what the heck do we know yet? But those other quarterbacks we talked about, Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre, they came into the league with such upside. And it all depends on which team you're going to, because if the team that drafted you that early believe you had upside, that's all that matters. You know what I mean? So you're either going to have to play well or fizzle with them. If you end up going to another team, well, you know what? They're taking you for whatever they can get you for if you got there that way, draft picks or even through free agency. But Brett Favre, we know about his penchant for throwing interceptions. I mean, he led the NFL in interceptions 3 times in his career. I mean, I think what is his 4th year, whatever, he had 24 interceptions. So
Yeah,
and
he was
early
a
on,
gunslinger.
a gunslinger. Yeah, you're known as a gunslinger now. Back then, they were just like you said. They're just happy he didn't throw an interception. Just throw it away. If you're slinging it through the audience, and they're happy about it. That's a good and bad thing. At least you didn't throw a pick, but you're still doing nothing with the ball to advance the team. It took him some time to become the Brett Favre we know of him to be today. And then, like Aaron Rodgers, same thing. He's actually was better coming in because he did have a chance to sit down behind Brett Favre. And now we have Jordan Love. I didn't think it was a good pick, but who the hell am I? I'm not a scout. But who's to say that scouts are right all the time? It's not an exact science. We've seen bad players a lot of times, and those same scouts have picked them. So yeah, maybe I should be a scout. But yeah, Jordan Love is getting all the hate right now. And I think Adam Shine, I think he's from, I forgot which network he's from, the NFL network, but I do remember him up on radio in New York. But he's loathing and loving Jordan Love at the same time. I don't know if he's just trying to make a play on words or is he actually that bad. So yeah, we'll get a chance to see that. And uh that will be the end for the NFL right now, as this is the full slate of games starting up this week. So whoever your favorite teams are, you'll get a chance to see your UPS workers, your insurance salesmen, and maybe even your starters that might start the season with you. So you'll get a chance to see that eventually. And finally, Megan Rapinoe, the soccer player, the national women's team that lost to Sweden, 5-4. We don't typically talk about soccer, but the way this ended with penalty kicks, there weren't any points. There weren't any goals, because I know how people get a little sensitive about saying points in soccer, and just like they get sensitive about saying points in baseball when it runs. But 5-4, the U.S. goes down. They're kicked out. They cannot three-peat. They're out of the World Cup. And she smiles about it, and she kind of laughs about it when it happens. She misses a penalty kick. It just completely goes into the audience, and the U.S. loses because of it. That's not even the real story. I think the story is the amount of people who are rooting against the female team, the U.S. women's team, because of her. And that's more intriguing to me because I was one of them. Come on now. I mean, this is someone who's gone on to not like America or pretty much say she's disappointed in America, taking a knee, protesting all the time, which she has a right to do, just like I have the right to criticize if she does it or does not do it. All of those things came to a head. And almost every comment I've seen, now not all of them, but almost every comment I'm seeing, not just people who agree with me, but just neutral sites, something like the New York Post or something like some other just supposedly neutral publication, the comments are all against her.
I didn't see it. I didn't pay attention. Honestly, I'm not even sure I was aware that it was going on. But you said she laughed when she missed.
Yeah, she
You know,
smiled.
so,
She laughed
or
to
she
herself when
smiled,
she missed.
whatever. Sometimes when you're at a disbelief, you can't believe you missed something, you missed a shot or whatever. Sometimes all you can do is laugh, like, wow, how did I miss that? So I'm not gonna throw no shade at her. I don't know what happened. I really don't care.
Oh, I think
That's all I got to say on it.
I guess not even from the standpoint of even caring. The fact that she's the one who had done it, it couldn't have ended better for people who just aren't on her side, like myself and so many others. And I'll be one of the people that will say exactly that. I'm not on her side. I've seen what she's done for years, speaking against the country and doing things that she has done when she can easily leave the country, like so many others who think the same way. And they choose not to. They stay here and they still want to complain about the same people who they believe are oppressing them, or people who want to allow them to do what they want to do. You can do what you want. This is probably the freest country in the world. But for the things you can't do, well, find somewhere else to do them. And I'll leave it on that.
Are you preempting me with your own hit list? You gotta
Oh,
get me heads up, dude.
no, I was about to throw it to your hit list because we've already talked about a little earlier, Bias has some things to say, and it normally comes at the end of the show, but we don't get a chance to talk about it.
Usually bring it out of me. That's why. So now we're just gonna make it a segment.
Just make it a segment, and we're gonna say Bias has issues. He has a hit list. Hit him up, Virus.
So first on my hit list today is Jeff Teague. He doubled down on saying James Harden is better than Dwayne Wade. Now that's fine if that's his opinion, but he said, quote, championships don't matter to him. What are we doing here? What are you playing basketball for if it's not to win a championship? Is it to just win money? To earn money, get yourself out of the ghetto? That's all fine and dandy, but you play sports to win the game. I believe I heard that before. You know who said that, Trav. So no, he's not better than Dwayne Wade. You want to say Dwayne Wade had Shaq? No, Shaq had Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade was the MVP of that series, not Shaq. Shaq was on the back nine. Come on, man. He even gave Dwayne Wade a nickname, called him Flash. Shaq knew he was riding along on his coattails, so miss me with that garbage, man. James Harden has choked too many times. Yes, choked too many times in the playoffs. Had 3-2 lead on the Warriors. One season, they said, oh, if Chris Paul didn't get hurt. Well, the next season, KD got hurt, and the Dubs still worked him with no Vaseline. So get out of here with that trash. James Harden is not better than Dwayne Wade. Second on my list, yes, he decked Tim Anderson. But Jose Ramirez is a sissy-ass bitch. He started that because he got tagged too hard. You got tagged too hard? Are you serious? That's why you started that? He tagged you too hard? Come on, man. You slid through his legs. You went in hard. He tried to put the tag down quick, and he got you on the back, on your butt. Did it hurt? Do you have a bruise? Come on, man. How soft are you? Yeah, you won the fight, but that's weak as hell, man. Weak as hell. You started a fight because you got tagged too hard. Get out of here. And to all Cleveland Guardians fans, there you
go. Well, there you go. Somebody got shut up tonight. Hey, man, we're going to have this as a segment every show from now on. So, hey, make sure you check out the end of the show because we will have Bias's hits to go along with all of the things we talk about in the sports world, even if it comes down to just doing one sport, which we do on occasions, especially on Wednesdays. One time last week or 2 times last week, we did Bud and we did Spence 2 days in a row. Other days, we've picked other sports athletes to do the same with. So for Bias, myself, Trav, we hope we get to catch you on our next episode. This is episode number 38. Make sure you join us tomorrow because that'll be number 39. Peace.